the importance of it being a living document, that it's not just a historical thing with sort of people in tights and powdered wigs. It's about keeping the population prosperous and free. And you shouldn't, when you diverge from that, your founders knew what they were doing. They'd fought against a concentrated power structure in a remote place. They knew the danger of that, and they deliberately tried to disperse jurisdiction. And that's what has made you so successful. And when people diverge from that, even though they do it from the best of motives, it ends up making America less American, and it makes people less free. Now, I concede that Barack Obama is doing what he's doing from the best of motives. I'm sure he's a patriot. I'm sure he's doing what he regards as being in the national interest, and he wants America to be fairer and to have a more equitable health system and better social security and blah, blah. Right? But the most dangerous diminutions of freedom come from people who are convinced of their own moral rectitude. All of those things could have been said of FDR. He was convinced that he was the champion of the people against the elites and the lobbies. And let's be honest, at this distance in time, I think we can probably concede that there was some truth in that analysis. There were elites and lobbies against him. But the point is that, in his mind, justified overcoming any constraints, any constitutional restraints on his position. He disregarded the two-term convention. He stuffed the Supreme Court, or tried to. He disregarded the legislature. He centralized power in the White House in a way from which the US still hasn't completely recovered. And that's the real danger. That acting from good motives, believing that you're responding to a financial crisis, believing that you're making the country fairer or more popular or whatever it is, you make the country more like everywhere else. That is, you make it less American and less free. And I've got to say, the reason that the rest of us are inspired by what your founders came up with and what you have lived up to is precisely because you've been the city on the hill. You've led the rest of the world, not by military might, but by moral example. It's exactly what your president said in his inauguration. So for heaven's sake, don't throw away the things that made you a moral example. Don't make your country less free for the sake of pursuing these short-term goals of vociferous popularity.
Mr. Hannan, anytime you want to come over to this side of the Atlantic Ocean and run for public office, you're more than welcome to do so. And everybody watching and listening to you now, listening to me now, I'm sure would agree with that. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Next time we'll get rid of those technical glitches, and we'll have the great Dan Hannan and the great Ron Paul on at the same time and in the same place. Thank you so much. Cody Willard joins us now, my colleague and friend from the Fox Business Network. R.J. Harris is here with us, a libertarian running against a conservative Republican for the Republican nomination to Congress, and Lou Rockwell, who is the intellectual guru of much of libertarian thought in America today, is with us. Lou, I don't think that I have heard a better and more articulate argument for the diffusion of power, as Mr. Hannan just said, in recent days than what we just heard from this British member of Parliament, this British member of the European Union, who startled the world by preaching the free market to the face of Gordon Brown.
I hear that there's some chance of him becoming the next prime minister. That that YouTube, which got millions of views in very quick order, has had such an effect that sort of the grassroots are demanding him as versus Mr. Cameron. We'll have to see whether that actually happens.
Yeah, well, he's certainly more faithful and true to a free market and civil liberty fundamentals than Mr. Cameron is, but I'm not going to get in the middle of that, because virtually anybody in the Conservative Party over there would be better than the government that they now have. Cody, I am champing at the bit to hear you unload on the begging of Chrysler for the government to own 50% of it.
I mean, and then, of course, you actually have the Republican-Democrat regime in power, / you can call it this administration if you want. As some other people here probably can't, I can't tell the difference. The idea, though, that these guys literally come out and say, but we do not want to own a car company, even though we're going to continue putting billions of dollars of welfare into a car company that forces us to continue to have to own a car company. You know what? Stop. Break it apart. Let's let free markets rule. Not even free markets. Let the system disrupt these guys. I mean, whatever, we are so far away from free markets, we're not going to get back to that in the auto industry anytime soon.
Hey, Lou, have you noticed what I've detected as a trend of authoritarianism in this government? I mean, we have life-tenured federal judges who, when they sit in the bankruptcy court, really are experts in economic matters and for the most part are ideologically neutral, who have the power to use neutral laws under bankruptcy to address things like Chrysler. They'll sell the good parts to entrepreneurs who'll make it work well, and they'll dispense of the bad parts. They'll decide fairly if the shareholders come first or if the bondholders come first. But this administration doesn't want to do that. This administration wants to cram down the throats of management, of labor unions, many of whom are very good, hard-working folks that just want their jobs, of shareholders and of bondholders, not what the law says, but what this administration wants to do.
Well, the bigger the government gets, the worse the government gets, and we've just seen a humongous increase in the size of government, similar to what took place after 9/11, the government loving crises because it enables it to expand its power and its pelf. So, yeah, I mean, they are authoritarian. They're getting worse, and it's a very alarming prospect. I have to say, my own view on the car companies is, don't buy a GM or a Chrysler. Don't buy anything involved with the government. If you want to buy an American car, buy a Ford, or
but Lou, the problem
buy a
is
foreign car.
Ford has billions of dollars in targeted tax subsidies and tricks that they get in welfare from the government, too. I have fundamental objections against all of those big car companies.
I agree with you on all of that, but Lou does make a point. What would the government do if the people who decided not to buy GM cars and not to invest in GM decided not to buy them because the government owns them?
Amen. Actually, I think there is a big movement. I've got this social network called SpokeUp.com, and there is a major movement among the people there against boycotting any company that has taken any funds from TARP or welfare or targeted tax tricks. If you're Bank of America, Citigroup, if you're Prudential, if you've taken GE, if you've taken welfare guarantees, loans, or outright infusions, we're boycotting you.
Vote with your money.
All right.
Yeah, and of course, GE, one of the worst companies, right? I mean, a big merchant of death and entirely on the federal payroll, GE. So, yeah, that goes.
And now with welfare guarantees on $120 billion of
GE is going to have a very, very interesting problem. We have another guest joining us in a moment, Jason Soyens. I'll get to you in just a minute, and I'm very anxious to chat with you. But GE is going to have a very, very interesting problem because they own media. So is the government, which is funding them, going to try and influence what the media says that they own about the government that's paying them? We've never had in our history before government owning major media.
It blows my mind. I get called a fanatic sometimes, and I had this epiphany this morning. Who's the fanatic here? It is the people in power that are grabbing all of these industries and changing the idea. 6 months ago, I actually used to, on my show, freak out about the fact we were letting sovereign wealth funds take ownership stakes in banks because that was going to allow for political influence. And I would actually say we would never allow the United States government, for example, to own a stake in a financial institution. 6 months later, we are in this bizarro world where that's not only conceivable, it's actually reality and getting ever worse on the slippery slope. And I don't know how to change it except to fight every Republican and Democrat in power who has enabled this.
Jason Soyens, what is your view of what average folks can do, freedom lovers saddled with election laws that favor Republicans and favor Democrats and make a third party almost impossible? Is it fanciful for me to think that in my lifetime, or even yours, and you're much younger than I am, God bless you, that these changes could come about? Or are we saddled with big government Republicans and big government Democrats for time immemorial?
I don't think it's fanciful that we could do something about this. Look, I mean, the Free State Project is the idea that I came up with about 7 years ago. And the idea is to move thousands of liberty-loving people to a single state where they can get involved in the political system and influence the political process. And the state we ended up choosing was New Hampshire. And hundreds of people have already moved to New Hampshire, and some of them have gotten elected. The basic idea behind the Free State Project is that both parties are big government parties. We saw what the Republicans did in office. We see what the Democrats are doing now. And we've seen a big surge in FSP membership because people are giving up on Washington, D.C. They're saying there's no way we can influence Washington, D.C., but at a state level, there is a lot that we can do, a lot that's very important. So why not use that mobilized minority that we have for better effect at the state level?
ask you a little bit more.